My name is Dan Medlin, and I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for North America and Asia Pacific for ARM. If you haven't heard of ARM, you probably should have, because we're in just about every computing device on the planet. We design early stage semiconductor designs that companies like Qualcomm and Intel and Samsung buy, and then they build their semiconductor chips around our designs. And we make our money off of the licensing and the royalties off of the billions upon billions. In fact, it's 70 billion right now chips that go out with our designs in them. So we're in everything: IoT devices, security devices, of course, mobile phones, servers, PCs, on and on and on. Our technology is inside that. So it's a pretty cool place to work, pretty exciting. A lot of the work, I have no idea what they're talking about half the time, right? Engineers in the room just laugh at me. It's okay. But I love what I do, and I love working with brilliant people. But the other thing that I really love doing is helping folks who are in the job hunt process. And I've spoken at Launchpad Job Club a few different times and speak around town. And around about 2010, I actually was going through a similar layoff period and developed a bit of a portfolio job, and was doing outplacement counseling, was doing independent headhunting, was recruiting, and then also was taking on individual clients for outplacement counseling and just helping them through career transition. And I had one client at the time who was just really working with me through the course of a summer, who said, "You've got a whole program here, and this is really unique. I've never seen, what you've put together here. You should write a book." Okay, I'm in between job positions right now. Let me see if I can do that. And so I put together the Star Career Workbook. So this program kind of feeds from that. You're going to really get a huge preview of that, and really a good chunk of it. You may or may not ever need to buy the book after hopefully going through this quick little training, but you might want to. Anyway, Star Career Workbook, and I just released a brand new edition for 2016. So the material that you're getting here comes straight out of the Star Career Workbook, and it follows the best known methods from all of the major outplacement firms on the planet. The STAR thing, right? So what's the whole STAR Career Workbook all about? There's a few different pieces to it. First, I'll jump down to some of the lower parts on that screen there. Into that, I do use the STAR acronym for a lot of the different memorization pieces of the STAR methodology. And that's really a lot of why I came up with the Star Career Workbook theme. The other piece that you need to know about the Star Career Workbook is that I talk about networking for your career opportunities, not necessarily just going through the job application process. And so there's a heavy focus on networking, building your network, and what you do when you're moving through your different contacts to uncover hidden job opportunities. And then the other piece is, as I say, I use that STAR acronym, and that's part of the messaging and the branding that I build in. So part of what I'm going to talk to you about is developing your personal brand, and then utilizing that throughout your career search. So let me just start with, are you a star? Okay, so who's got some pens, pencils, paper, ready to write, ready to work? Please get that out. Okay, we're going to work a little bit in here, because I wrote a workbook, and this is a workshop. Okay, so get ready. So I want you to just jot these questions down, or a note about it. I want you to answer these questions right now. Do you have a plan for your career? You should, right? I'm looking around the room. We've got a mature group here. You've probably got a plan for your career. How dusty is it right now? How dusty was your resume when you found out that your company was going to start turning south and you may need to hunt for a job? That's probably about as dusty as your career plan is. Do you understand what your long-term plan is and what your short-term plan is? Where do you need to get where you want to go? Have you really done the the homework necessary to understand what's my mission, what's my vision for my career, how does that tie in with who I am, with what I believe, and what my life is all about. And what are your values, tying in the same there, and what are your objectives? So, do you understand these things? Have you really done the homework around them? So, question number one, do you have a plan, and have you done this homework? Raise your hand. Yeah? Good. Fantastic. About 1/4 of the room. All right, talented. So you're all talented. You've had a professional career. You've done some pretty interesting things. I have no doubt about that. But have you done the necessary homework to really uncover your talents, to understand what your strengths are, where you're most talented, so that you can package that into a message to a potential employer of why they would want to hire you? Have you pulled that into some impactful stories about this is what I've accomplished that relate back to what my talents are, what my strengths are? So if you feel like you've done that kind of work so far, raise your hand. Okay. About the same number. And some of the same folks who maybe have gone through an outplacement service. A little bit, okay? All right, available. Are you actively engaged, networking, out attending events? Not just attending events, volunteering, actively engaging, both online and in person. Yes? Most everybody here, probably. Okay. And then lastly, have you done the homework needed to really be able to communicate succinctly to a potential employer what your return on investment is? How will you be a resource to your next employer? How will you help their bottom line? If you were in the elevator, you've heard of the elevator pitch before. If you were in the elevator with the CEO of the company that you would most like to go to work for today, could you tell him before you reached floor number 6 what your return on investment would be if that company would hire you? Could you tell them? Raise your hand. Okay? Couple of people. All right. Good, confident crowd. Fantastic. Okay. So there are, when I talk about having star motivation, what I'm talking about here is a strong internal locus of control. It gets a little psychological for you, so some of my colleagues in HR will be able to relate to this. All right. So an internal locus of control. An internal belief that I have an I can do attitude. I take ownership, I take responsibility for both my successes and my failures. An external locus of control, blaming. It's not my fault, I was under-resourced, I was underutilized, whatever the case may be, that's an external locus of control. Employers are listening for this. Whether they really know that they're listening for it or not, or whether they're telling you that they're really listening for it or not, but they're listening for this. Do I have a can-do attitude? Do I take ownership? Do I claim responsibility? If you know that you can do things, you work toward overcoming obstacles, you learn from your failures, and you find solutions, you find success. Right? I've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to move on here. So the stars know their strengths and their talents. So I want you to think through some of these questions. Think of a yearning, the things you look forward to working on that draw you back each day. Jot that down. The things you do at work that draw you back each day. It's Monday. Do I get up? Do I go in? Absolutely, because I get to do what? Okay? Practicing strengths feels good. Think of the things that you do each day, maybe even something similar to what you just jotted down, but it consistently brings you satisfaction. It just feels good doing this. I love it when a candidate accepts an offer. It makes me feel great. Right? What is it for you? If you catch on quickly to things, this is a talent. Think of things that you catch on very quickly to. Within minutes, you're teaching other people how to do this. Write that down. What is that? That's a strength, that's a talent for you. Think of times that you've been complimented on your excellence. Think of a story where a time in your recent work experience when somebody said, fantastic, perfect, that was excellent. That's a talent and that's a good story to tell in your interviews, in your networking, and on your resume. Think of times when you lost yourself in your work, when time just flies by. What are you doing when time just flies by in your work? That's a talent for you. So if you don't have time to think through the answer, at least jot down the question and then maybe come back to some of these to work through that. So what I try to teach you a little bit is this concept of building your star stories. So, you know, you talk about your resume and probably more than one person has told you have a solution or a success-focused resume. And what is that? What are they talking about there? That means that throughout the course of your resume, under each job experience, you're going to have bullet points that highlight specific successes or accomplishments, right? And in each one of those bullet points, there's a whole story that you can unpack in an interview, correct? Now, here's the secret sauce to that story, and it's the T in STAR. It's trouble. Because a great story is a story where you had to overcome great obstacles, great challenges. So go back through your stories that you're talking about with networking contacts or through or when you're talking to recruiters. Are you talking about stories where you had to really overcome some significant challenges? If not, work those into your conversation. All right, I want to move through developing a STAR resume. Works in a good deal of what I've described for you so far. So you understand your strengths and your talents. You've documented your STAR stories. Sorry, I'm going to go back. Yeah. So you've documented your STAR stories. And you work those into your resume under the body, under each job experience. And it really relates back to this last bullet under the purpose of your resume. Remember that your resume is not going to get you a job, right? You know that. Your resume is nothing but a foot in the door. It's a good leave behind. It reminds the company, oh, I should call that person back. Probably they'll never print it out these days. It's going to remain electronic the whole time you're a candidate with that company. But it's a foot in the door. But the other piece is that it's an interview guide. When you walk in there, hopefully for an interview, they're going to print out your resume and they're just going to sit down in front of you, across the table, they're going to have a copy of your resume. What's on that document that you're prepared to talk about are your STAR stories in there. Will you be able to talk through accomplishments and successes? And will you be able to talk about times that you really overcame obstacles and accomplished great things? So I talk about just the basic structure, and I'll give you a few quick tips, header, intro. Any questions on some of these body, the first person strip, use language and acronyms that are industry specific, use power verbs, probably things that you've seen before and heard before, but we'll get to a Q&A in just a minute, and if you have specific questions around resume, we can ask those. I do want to talk to you a little bit about branding real quickly, and I want you to jot down this social media quick to-do list. If you haven't really worked on your social media profile or your external presence, complete your profile, build out your contacts, ask for recommendations, get some of your expertise out onto your profile, white papers, research, links to other bodies of work that you may have done. participate in groups, connect to different groups, find the companies that that are on your target employer list, link up to follow those companies, get engaged in the conversations that those companies are having, and actively engage with employees in those companies via social media consistently, and then you'll be able to ask them for leads about job opportunities in those companies. Stars don't just apply for jobs, they network for new opportunities. And so again, this is done through a careful and strategic networking, finding contacts within your target employers, and then building those contacts. So contact A, contact B, who are these people? Jody was telling me a story just this morning about walking to the post office and just talking to a next door neighbor that they had the wrong keys. They had to swap mailbox keys, right? Conversation strikes up. Next thing you know, he's an engineer that we would probably like to hire at ARM. You never know where you're going to make one of these contacts. And so you build that network through a foundation. The bottom foundation, friends, family, former co-workers. The next level, people that you meet, contacts that you make, people that they will introduce you to. The next level, actual job leads, hiring managers, hopefully, and finally at the top, decision makers at the companies where you can find, where you'll get a job offer. I want to talk about interviewing. Informational interviews, you're going to be networking, so you're going to be asking for meetings with different people in your network, and you'll need to conduct an informational interview. Have a plan. I actually give you in the workbook the STAR methodology to that plan. I'm sorry, went back. Let me go back here. Okay, telephone interviews, keep your energy high, keep your tone positive, and stay on your message. Those telephone interviews are usually built to eliminate candidates and narrow down the field. Don't get eliminated through that process. Approach on-site interviews with a win-win attitude. Understand, have your message ready, your STAR story, and be ready to go through your resume with those bullet points. I'm not going to have enough time to go through closing and negotiating because I want to get to a couple of questions if I have. So, absolutely any question. I flew through this material 20 minutes. I had no idea how fast that was. Okay.
How do you target people in the company to try to build those relationships with, to get that A and B person?
Yeah. So again, starts with friends and family. Who do you know? Who can you introduce me to? And even really before there's those things are happening in parallel with who do I want to go work for? What companies match up to my strengths, my core values, the size, the structure of the company, so that I can identify those target companies, so that when I'm asking my friends, family, past coworkers, past managers, who they know and who they can introduce me to, then I connect those to the target companies where I want to work. So it's a volume game, building as many contacts as you can in that A level. B level is getting across that line inside those companies. So I want to strategically find people who are working inside those companies who I can maybe set up an informational interview with, find out more about their company, and uncover hidden opportunities in that company.
Is informational interviews one of the best ways to find hidden opportunities?
Yes.
Are there other ways?
Informational interviews are the best way to find hidden opportunities, flat, by far. You can hear about opportunities through networking on Facebook and LinkedIn and uncover leads or word about job opportunities. But to really get your name in there before that job even gets posted, you've got to set up some informational interviews. Any other questions? Okay. Yes.
I think it's worth the money to get your pay, get your resume rewritten or your
No,
LinkedIn page?
absolutely not. Send it to me and I'll